I might actually want to turn on the microphone. Let me do that again. Okay. Hit the wrong button. Okay, so it is Tuesday night. It is 8 p.m. here on the east side of the United States, here in the diaspora. This is the Maimon Beit Knesset. Therefore, it's the Rabbis Discuss, question mark, whatever it is we're going to discuss with Rabbi A and Rabbi A. In the chat room so far, we have Yair, we have Shoshi, we have Donald, who has his internet back now, Richard, and Marshall, and those watching in the background. So, Rabbi Ancel, how are you doing?
Good evening. We're missing Marilyn.
Pardon? Oh yeah. She hasn't popped in just yet.
Okay.
So
I had a long conversation with her.
yeah. Oh, that's right. You told me about that. Yeah. Okay. So, what's up with you? Anything interesting going on?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, I'm asking you. I
Sunday
should be
was my
talking to somebody else.
Sunday was my Jewish birthday, and also
Also,
the other three rabbis from the Dominican Republic that study with me, and I did ordain them myself, along with Aryel, had asked me to be the chief rabbi of the Dominican Republic. I accepted, and like I said to Aryel, it's easy to accept, but with that title comes a lot of responsibilities, and you have to be careful. You have to think before you say something, because once said, it's said, and it could be wrong. So, yeah, it's nice. I don't believe in titles, but if they ask me, I accept it. To me, what Hashem said, what God said, that we're all created equal, and this is how I believe it. And I've also told Ariel I have 2 more days on Facebook jail because I defended animals, and I was adamant about people who abuse animals, and they didn't like what I said, unfortunately, but I happen to love animals, sometimes more than humans.
so,
So,
but that's a big deal. I mean, we're very, very happy for you that you are now the chief rabbi of the Dominican Republic, and that we have an association with you. And yeah, I think it's well deserved. Whether you like titles or not, it's like the Rabbi Schneerson said that if one puts the keys to the library in your pocket, what are you supposed to do? Leave it open and let them steal the books?
you also have to realize, Ariel, that you are my chaver and you are my partner. We are equal. So this is how I've always felt about you.
Well, I appreciate that. I don't know how well it's deserved, but I appreciate it. Okay, so
If you would,
before we
I
get
speak straight. If you didn't deserve it, I wouldn't say it.
yeah,
It is what it is.
okay,
Okay, let's
I'll
let's get
accept that.
back to the topic.
Okay, yeah. So last week, before we kind of got sidetracked, which was not a bad thing, but we were talking about this case study that we had been talking about, which was. So I'm going to pose the question again, just to remind everybody and give everybody a chance to kind of chime in on it after hearing what we were talking about last week. The question is, I am a seamstress. In order to save the cost of paying someone to design clothing and to avoid the risk that the design will not be successful, I visit popular women's clothing stores in Geulah and photograph the items that are popular and then sew and sell the identical item. My husband recently told me that perhaps what I am doing is improper. must I cease my practice? So we got into this, and we got we got almost to the end of the first part, because this is a two-parter again. And Richard says, congratulations, Rabbi Ancel.
Thank you.
And so we got, let me put that up for you on your side. So I tell you what, I will go through the rest of the first part, and then we can get into the second part of this. So I'll pick up where we left off last week. I'll take a step back and read the previous paragraph just to kind of refresh everybody's memory, and then we will go on from there. Just so you know, this is where I'm going to be starting. Okay, so this was also the ruling of the Birkat Shlomo. His ruling post World War II was really a further extension of the previous ruling, because in his case, the plaintiff, who was the owner of the rights to print the Vilna Shas, remember this all had to do with the printing of the Shas, no longer printed the Shas at all since the Nazis, may their bones be broken, had destroyed his press. Thus, he did not lose customers from the defendant's reprinting and sale of the Vilna Shas. His loss was that by printing the Shas without paying for the right to print the Shas, the defendant prevented the plaintiff from selling the rights to print the Shas to another publisher who would have otherwise paid for the rights. So we will pick up there. That's where we left off last week. So Rav Zalman Nechemiah Goldberg, Tehumim, Volume 6, discussed the same issue in the context of copying tapes. Now, I'm sure you all, most of us in the chat room are all old enough to remember the whole thing about, recording on our cassette tapes off of the radio, or you could go into certain stores and you could pay a fee, and then you could copy the songs that they had onto a cassette tape, and so on and so forth. So I don't think any young people out there would even know what we're talking about. So he claimed that the extension of the Noda bin Yehuda in the case where the printer derived benefit from his own letters is actually, remember this had to do with the printer who had printed the document and without the rabbi's commentary, and then sold it. So because the issue was what was the damage? It was his type, and so on and so forth. So the printer derived benefit from his own letter is actually a dispute among the Rishonim and the Achronim. He writes that according to the Noda B'Yehuda, one who copies and sells tapes owes money to the one who made the original tape. Okay, and then we can go back to the whole, what was it, Napster. Remember Napster? Rabbi Ancel?
Hello?
Yeah, it was, do you remember Napster?
Yes.
Yeah, there was a music sharing site, and you paid a fee, and basically Napster didn't have the rights to any of the music that they were actually allowing people to download and stuff like that, and there was a huge lawsuit over it and everything, and there was a few other sites similar to that where you could go on and download movies and stuff like that. And so anyway, according to the Rav Zalman Nechemiah Goldberg, that one who sells tapes owes money to the one who made the original tape. So he goes on to say, here that one should note that your practice. Now this goes back to the question, directly to the question, and we've gone around the bush several times. So now we're actually getting to the question. So we should note that your practice of just taking pictures and not even buying the product that you copy is even worse, since you are deriving benefit from the store owner who owns the clothing, and you are damaging him as well, since he loses customers too. Therefore, even Baruch Ta'am and Yehudas Malko would agree that you are liable for the benefit you derive from your practice. They go on to say, we should note that there are two other prohibitions that you may well be violating. One is rabbinic theft, known as one Himenikev. Is that right?
I can't see.
It would be right here. Can you see it?
No, you didn't put the thing up.
I didn't. It's showing that it's up. Let me do this. Let me do this, and then I'll put it up again, and let me know if you can see it now.
Yep.
Okay. So you can see right here is the.
It's known as Haminakav. It's and the second is causing a person a loss of livelihood, which is yoret leonos chavero, since you are engaged in an unfair practice in a manner that curtails your competition's income. However, each of these requires an independent article. In conclusion, you must cease the practice.
Yep.
But there's a note that says this ruling applies only where the ones who suffer the loss are Torah observant. I disagree with that.
I do too. Yeah.
Since legally one is allowed to copy the design clothing, the ruling would be different if the parties are not Torah observant Jews. That is not fair. So that means it's okay for a Jew to steal from a Christian because...
Well, he's even saying that it's okay for a Jew to steal from another Jew if they feel that the other Jew is not observant.
If he's a Reformed Jew. But this is a conclusion. See, this is the whole thing about this whole thing, which people in the listening, they must realize that these are conclusions. These are not laws,
right?
And these are not something that you have to follow. This is what they conclude. You got to cease the practice, but it's okay to steal from an Orthodox Jew. It's okay to steal from somebody who's a Reformed Jew or he's a conservative Jew. What about, let's turn the table around. What about a guy from Chabad taking something from somebody who's Breslov or Satmar? Is that okay?
Well, that's right, because they wouldn't consider the Satmar or the Breslov to be observant Jews.
Okay, but that's the problem.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you, Aryel, could be the chief rabbi of Breslov, and I would be the chief rabbi of Satmar. You would not eat in my own house because the shechita, which means killing the animal, is totally different. Why is it different? It's using the same knife. Using it in the same place. Why is it so different? This is why in Florida I had the problems with doing taharas, because not just every state, every synagogue that had their own Chavra Kadisha
Mm-hmm.
made up their own rules. It doesn't make sense.
Well,
I sometimes would be invited to a different synagogue because they were short a man to do a tahara, and I walked in there and I felt like a stranger, and I said, "Whoa, wait a second. Why are you doing this?" Well, that's our way. What do you mean you're our way? There's got to be only one way. You are a Jew. You're doing a tahara, and this was the whole thing. This was the whole problem. Is because we point at each other. This is a
yeah.
Reformed Jew, and he does it this way. This one is a conservative Jew, and he does it this way. You are a Jew. I don't care what you are. What you believe in is between you and God, not between you and me. And this is why a lot of the times when they say in conclusion that you must cease the practice, why? Because it's not a Torah law, it's a rabbinic law.
Yeah.
That doesn't make him right and doesn't make him wrong. But then he turns the whole thing around. He says, "Oh, but it's okay. If he's not an observant Jew, steal from him. That's not right."
Yeah. Now, I'll tell you a story. I heard this story the other night, or a couple of nights ago. Can't remember exactly when. But I think this goes to the to the whole point of the thing, or against the point that they're saying, the note that you and I both disagree with. Okay, so the rabbi goes to his rabbi, and he says, it's driving me crazy. He says, the guy who owns the store next to the shul is he's not an observant Jew, and he opens his store on Shabbat. And every week it just drives me crazy to see this man. I've asked him to close on Shabbat. He says no. He says, I'm not observant and I'm going to keep my shop open on Shabbat. And the Rabbi looks at him and says, do you love this man? And the rabbi says, no, I don't love him. I loathe him. I hate him. He's, I'm not allowed to love him because he's not observant and he desecrates the Sabbath. And the Rabbi says, I'll tell you what you do. It says, every Shabbat, you go in to his store when you're on your way to shul. You stop into the store and you tell him, I love you. And you do that for 6 months. And the rabbi goes, I can't do that. He says, I don't like the man. I can't stand him. I can't stand being around him. He says, how am I supposed to be able to go in there and tell this man that I love him? And the rabbi says, you're a smart guy. Figure it out. So he comes back and he says, okay, I'll give it a try. And he comes back. He says he goes in the first week. He goes in and he says comes up to the storekeeper and says, he says, good Shabbos. And the storekeeper said, oh, what are you doing? Yeah, why are you bothering me here? Aren't you supposed to be in shul? I told you I'm not going to close on Shabbat, and this is done. And the rabbi says, no. He says, I'm not here to do that. He says, I'm here to wish you a good Shabbos and just to say, you're my brother. You're a Jew. Have a good Sabbath. So the storekeeper thinks he's a little wacko anyway, so, But the next week he does it again. He walks in, tells the store owner, Shabbat Shalom, you're my brother, you are a Jew, I love you, and I'm going now to shul. So he does this for a number of weeks. He goes in every Shabbos morning. He goes in there and wishes him good Shabbos. So eventually, the store is closed on Shabbat. He says, the problem isn't with him, the problem's with you. You hate him. He doesn't hate you. You hate him because he's open on Shabbat. So, again, going back to what we were talking about here, excuse me, swallowed that one wrong, only applies to Torah observant Jews. Well, how do you know that you can't make somebody a Torah observant Jew? How do you know they won't be a Torah observant Jew at some point in the future? In the Avot, correct me if I'm wrong, but in the Avot it says, judge every man, Abia Zaharon, judge every man towards righteousness.
To me, that note is purely anti-Semitic. How can they say that? People that write about Torah law and they're supposed to be, and they are definitely very, very smart people. How can you make a comment like that the ruling applies only for the ones who suffer a loss that are Torah observant? To me, it's anti-Semitic.
No, the Torah makes no differentiation again about whether you steal from a Jew or you steal from anybody else. The Torah is very, very plain on that. Don't steal. Don't take something that doesn't belong to you. It doesn't say, don't take something that doesn't belong to you if it belongs to an observant Jew, but if it belongs to a non-observant Jew or to a goy, then fine, go ahead and take it.
Question, just because you're a Torah observant Jew, it doesn't make you a good person.
No, that's true. That is very true.
You could be a Torah observant and be the biggest thief in the world.
Well, you wouldn't. You would think you were Torah observant, but you wouldn't actually be Torah observant, would you?
Can somebody in the chat room define me what Torah observant Jew is? What does an observant Jew observe? What does he do?
Yeah.
What does he do differently than what a Jew is supposed to do? A man is supposed to put on tefillin and daven in the morning. He's supposed to go to work, and he's supposed to provide for the family. The woman is the queen of the house. She is supposed to be, okay, nowadays it's a little bit different because a lot of women work. But a woman is the queen of the house. She raises the children. This is why on Friday night you bless your wife. Aryel.
Yeah.
This is why on Friday night the father lays hands on his children. He blesses the children to thank Hashem for God giving him children. That is being observant because it's not being observing the Torah. You're observing Jewish tradition because that is tradition. To me, Torah, to me, the law is the Ten Commandments, and then you expand the Ten Commandments, and it becomes the Talmud, it becomes the Mishnah. Mm-hmm. But the whole problem with the Talmud, with the Mishnah, they never come out to a decision. It's always a conclusion. It's either a conclusion or no. And sometimes, believe it or not, they're wrong. Because as much as they're smart people, as much as Caro or Rambam, they made mistakes.
Yeah.
You are human, and to be human is to err. Nobody is perfect. Yes, like I always said, there are smart people. Doesn't mean that always what they decide or what they believe it is the right answer is correct.
Let's see. Year put something in the chat room. It says, What makes one Torah observant Jew as we never kept all the Torah?
Show me one person that has kept all 613 of them.
Well, that's impossible.
Okay.
It's absolutely, and I want to explain this for the people that are listening, is that it is absolutely impossible to observe all 613 mitzvot because some mitzvot are incumbent on women and not men. Some are incumbent on judges and not some incumbent on the Kohanim and not the Leviim, and some on the Leviim and not the Kohanim and not Israel. So it's absolutely impossible to keep all 613 commandments, at least in one transmigration.
I'm sorry, but if you don't keep them, that means you're not Torah observant.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a rhetorical question because you cannot. You can, to me, somebody who's a Torah observant or a good Jew is someone who's a good person. He's a good father. He's a good husband. That makes you an observant Jew, because that's what the Torah tells you to be. But you cannot follow all of it. Because if you were to look at somebody like me, I am Ashkenazi. You are
Sephardi.
Totally different. You're Sephardic. Would you come on Pesach and eat in my house? Or would I go to somebody who's Sephardic? Would I go into his house? Would I eat on Pesach in his house? You bet your life I would, because I am in his house. I have to follow his rules, not the rules, his traditions. Because
Right.
if I don't, I would be offending him. And believe me, Hashem wouldn't be mad at me. So
Yeah, that's true. It's just like when you go to a synagogue that you have to observe their minhag. That
minhag is, yes, it's
yeah,
their
I mean,
tradition.
if they stand during the Shema, you stand during the Shema, even though when you're at your home synagogue, you don't stand. You follow the
Whether you
minhag of the
like it or you
congregation you're at.
don't. It's whether you like or you don't. You do what people do. You follow them. You may disagree, which is fine. Judaism is the only religion who allows you to question. It allows you even to question whether there is a God.
Mm-hmm.
Try and do it when you're a Catholic.
Yeah.
We are allowed to question, because the more we question, the more we find out some of the answers. Will we get all the answers? Oh, I am sure we will get the answers, only when we go to God. Meanwhile, follow traditions. Be a good person. Be a good person from your heart, not from your head. That's why, for my dissertation, for my smicha, I wrote and I told the dean that I'm going to write a dissertation, because he wanted me to study an extra 2 years for me to get Yadin, which is to be a judge.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I'm burned out. I no more. He says, I'm going to write a dissertation. And he says, about what? I said, I'm going to write a dissertation about the difference between belief and faith. And he looked at me and he said, you're full of it. He said, there is no difference. I said, well, if I can prove it to you, would you forgive me the 2 years? And he says, go ahead. I did, because believing with your head is you can go to 10 rabbis and you will get 20 different opinions, as you can see by reading this.
Yes.
Or you go to 10 doctors and you will get 20 different opinions. But when you talk through your heart, la corazón in Spanish means the heart. The heart does not know how to lie. The heart, that is your faith. The belief is in your head. But here's the crux of the whole matter. To have faith, you must believe. and to believe you must have faith. They're intertwined, but they're different. And by reading the Torah, by reading the Mishnah or this, you must think with your head, but must feel with your heart, because that's the way. And this is just me. I mean, Aryel may be different, and you people in the chat room may be different, because I will say how I feel, and I'm disappointed because this note to me is anti-Semitic. It's okay to steal from an unbeliever Jew, but that makes it okay even more that you can steal from a goy. That is wrong. That is 100% wrong.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. So let's go on to the second part of this.
Okay.
So let me scroll that up for you.
If anybody has a problem with my answer, they can ask me.
Mm-hmm. Well, that, and it's interesting too, because we talk about the Sephirot, right?
Yep.
One side of the Sephirot is stern judgment, and the other side of the Sephirot is mercy.
Yep.
Well, you have to balance the two, because stern judgment without mercy is not justice, and mercy without stern judgment is not justice either. It's a balance.
But, okay, that balance, that's what makes a good judge.
Exactly.
That's what makes a fair and good judge, because that's how you must think. You can't go on one side, you can't go on the other side. There has to be a medium. And I have read some dissertations from the Supreme Court of the United States. They go one way or they go the other way. I have yet to see a dissertation where they split the decision. Mm-hmm. Very, very seldom. And that disappoints me.
What do you mean split the decision? You mean half and half?
Yes.
Well, they can't, because it's an odd number.
Exactly.
And it's specifically that way. The problem is unlike our court system, where any major case has to be cited by a majority of 2. In the Supreme Court, it's just a simple majority. If you have 5-4, then the 5 win out. If you had 5-4 in our court, it doesn't win. You have to bring in more judges.
Yep. That's why I believe that when there is a jury, I believe that all of them should have the same answer. If one of them disagrees, that should not be considered a judgment, especially when it comes to a major crime.
Yeah. Well, that's the way it is. I mean, it does have to be unanimous.
It has to be unanimous.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's a hung jury.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to the second portion. Let's see if it gets more interesting.
Okay. Okay, you want to read this?
Where am I? It says before?
Yep.
Okay. Before we address your question, it is important to clarify the gravity of this issue. And in Pashas Kisova, the Torah lists 11 actions for which the perpetrator is cursed by Hashem. One of these actions is known as Hashgachas Gevul, which is moving a boundary. This refers to a person who moves the physical demarcation line that separates his property from the property of his neighbor, thereby effectively stealing some of his neighbor's land. So that's stealing.
Yeah.
So, but let me stop there for a second. So it says in the Torah lists 11 actions for which the perpetrator is cursed by God. Well, maybe one day we should go into how God curses people.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Well, and
all right,
in this
so
case, I mean the whole idea of, because of moving the boundary, is not just that you're stealing your neighbor's property. It's because God had determined what the boundaries were going to be for the tribes.
okay, many poskim understand the curse to include commercial boundaries as well. These opinions maintain that one who takes away a portion of another person's livelihood in a prohibited manner is included in the curse. Among those who held this opinion are many recent poskim, including Aruch HaShulchan by Rav Moshe Feinstein, may he rest in peace, and Rabbi Ovadia Yosef, who was the chief rabbi of Israel. Another reason for extreme concern is that, can you move it up?
Right here.
Can you move the page up?
I did. Evidently, your internet is not running that fast tonight. So let's try this again. Okay, and okay, you see it now?
What am I?
You're right up here. Many poskim.
Okay, including the Hassam Sofer, who proves that this is the opinion of the Rama, and many others maintain that this action is also included in the Torah's prohibition of stealing. Many later poskim again, included Rav Moshe Feinstein, also agreed. We should note further that the poskim write that the fact that many people, perhaps even including people who otherwise act like a religious Jew. How do you act like a religious Jew? You are or aren't. Regularly violate this prohibition does not change the law that makes it prohibited. That doesn't make sense.
Let's take that again. Okay.
We should note further that the poskim write that the fact that many people, perhaps even including those people who otherwise act like religious Jews. Can somebody tell me how you act like a religious Jew?
Well, there's plenty of them out there.
Regularly violate this prohibition does not change the law that makes it prohibited. So, if I put on a yarmulke and I put on my tzitzit, so I act like a religious Jew, but I'm not.
Well, let's okay. I'm going to take a kind of a strange turn here. Okay, so
yep.
you have the mafia don who orders, he's engaged in selling drugs, he's engaged in prostitution, he's engaged on all of these illegal acts and stuff, and he goes to his church every Sunday, gives money to the church and stuff like that. Well, on the surface he appears to be, a devout religious person. But underneath, he's actually robbing and stealing and murdering and all this other stuff. So, yeah, okay, I get it. I get what they're saying.
Do you remember the famous movie, The Godfather?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
He was in church and his assistants were killing the people.
Yep.
So
okay, so I get what they're saying about who act like a religious Jew, but, violate not only this prohibition, but other prohibitions too.
Yeah. So we should also preface our discussion by noting that Torah law in general is in favor of competition. But the Gemara and Baba Basra cites the authoritative opinion of Rabbi Huna, son of Rabbi Yehoshua, who permits another inhabitant to establish a rival mill even adjacent to the first mill.
Okay, now this is where I started having an issue with this.
Yeah.
Moshe Lee has joined us. Good to have you. And Simcha has joined us. So I just want to make sure that we catch up with the chat room. So, yeah, I'm starting to have an issue with this because we have discussed, during the summertime, we have discussed another case where a person opened a store. Well, maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. So let's do this. Why don't you finish that paragraph? Then we'll take our break, and then we'll come back, and we're going to get into this a little deeper because I have some issues here.
Let's stop here because I have a comment on that. For the simple reason is, there is a Jewish law that if I have a synagogue on a street, it is against Jewish law for another rabbi to come and intrude in my territory. It's the same thing that we were discussing now here, that what Rabbi Huna is saying, that he permits another inhabitant to establish a rival mill even adjacent to the first mill.
Yeah.
Which is, first of all, is wrong because now you're going to have competition. You may even have fights between these two people. So,
right.
Is it
correct? We studied this summer where somebody wanted to open a store on the same street as another store that already existed, and the judgment of the din in that case was, no, you couldn't do that. You could do it at the corner where another street was, but you couldn't set it up on the same street within a few stores of his.
Yep.
Because you're stealing his customers.
Okay, so let's take our break and then we'll return.
Okay, so I'm going to turn your volume down here, and we're gonna, like I said, we're going to take a 6-minute break, and then when we return, we'll get into this a little deeper. So everyone, please stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Delicious things to eat.
The popcorn can't be beat. The sparkling drinks are just dandy. The chocolate bars and the candy. So let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
It's intermission time, folks, so hurry, hurry, hurry. Step right over to our refreshment center for the most extravagant array of refreshment goodies ever assembled under one roof. Enjoy breathtaking, mouth-watering goodies, everything from a snack to a delicious full meal. At our refreshment center, you'll find a large variety of goodies to satisfy your hunger, your thirst, or your sweet tooth. So hurry, hurry, hurry. Visit our refreshment center now. The show starts in 5 minutes. The show starts in 4 minutes. The show starts in 3 minutes. The show starts in 2 minutes. The show starts in 1 minute. And now, on with the show.
And we are back, just as we promised we would be. Again, if you're just joining us, we are discussing this case, and I'll just read it again real quick. Case where I copied a successful design from stores and sold my wares in competition with stores. Okay, so you wrote in the previous article, when I copied successful designs from a store or from stores and then sold my wares in competition with the stores, I might have been guilty of violating the prohibition against taking away another person's livelihood. I plan to stop the practice anyway because of what you wrote in the previous article, but I'm interested to know if I actually violated this prohibition. And that's where we left off. And let me give Rabbi Ancel's picture back up here again, and then we'll bring him back in. So
that he permits another inhabitant to establish a rival mill, even adjacent to the first mill. And on top of that, he also says that even if the proprietor of the second mill is a resident of a different city, he may still establish a rival mill in the same courtyard, provided he pays the local taxes. On the other hand, if he doesn't pay the local taxes, even if he's a local resident, he may not open a rival mill. But now he's contradicting himself.
Well, there is a reason for it, though. Because if he's not paying taxes, he can sell or he can mill at a cheaper price than the other person who is actually paying taxes. So it's unfair competition because he's selling it at a price that the other person cannot possibly match. True?
True.
Okay.
Furthermore, the Gemara says, or the Gemara encourages price cutting since it is advantageous to the consumer.
Okay, let's get back up here.
Okay.
Right here.
Need to lower it a little bit?
Is it not scrolling?
Does the, and then on the right-hand side.
Should be, there's something, Skype is not behaving correctly tonight for some reason. I don't know why, but it's not. So you should be right here. You see it now?
No. I says, further, the Gemara encourages price cutting since it is advantageous to the consumer. Does the, and that's where it stops.
Okay, so why don't I go ahead and read?
Okay.
Thus, the Mishnah cites the authoritative opinion of the Rabbanon that we laud one who lowers the price if the competition is capable of lowering its price as well. As a result, the Ramah rules that local merchants cannot object to competition from merchants from other cities if the latter sells at a price which is lower than what the lower merchant but could charge, since the customers gain. So basically, he can lower his prices. He is able to do that. So, however,
it's always one.
Yeah, all the above is true provided the competition is fair. The same Mishnah discusses whether a store owner is allowed to offer children roasted grain or nuts. That was a delicacy for children in the time of the Gemara, as we see in Pesachim, folio 108a. That one was supposed to make his children happy on Yom Tov by buying them these items as an incentive to patronize his store. The authoritative opinion is that it is permitted. Okay, so it's an inducement. Okay. It is critical to note that the reason the Gemara gives for allowing this practice, the Gemara says it is permitted because the competition is capable of offering children a different incentive. Many poskim explain that the fact that we only permit offering incentives because the competition can also offer incentives in no way conflicts with the ruling that one may establish a mill adjacent to an existing mill, since the first mill can compete fairly with the second mill. And again, I got to go back to what we studied earlier in the summertime.
But that creates a war of prices.
Yeah.
It's what they call a pricing war.
Well, it could actually, and I'll get into it a little bit, but back in the early 1980s, there was a lawsuit against Sony. Actually, I think it was Sony for dumping, and that was because it was the war between. Again, most of you people that are in the chat room are old enough to remember this. If you remember Beta and VHS and the big war between Beta and VHS, well, Beta was a far superior video source. It was cleaner, it had better resolution and stuff, but VHS won out. Why? Because the VHS makers were dumping product onto the market along with their players at a price that they were actually losing money on it. They were actually selling it for less than what it cost to make. And the whole purpose was to drive the competition out of business. Once the competition was out of business, they would raise their price up to where they were actually making a profit because there was no more competition. So, in this case,
is this a fair pricing?
No, there was a lawsuit over it, and there was a huge fine involved in that. But it's the same thing, same thing here. If I had a mill, if I was from another city and I established a mill in the same courtyard as this existing mill was, and let's say I was fairly well to do, I had a number of other mills, and I could come in and I could basically sell what I was milling in my mill for less than what it was actually costing me to mill it. And in a short period of time, I knew I could drive the other mill out of business. That's not fair competition. Hence why when we were talking about this earlier in the summer, it had to do with two stores, but I don't see any difference between the mills and two stores, that you couldn't open it on the same street because it was unfair competition.
Correct.
You were taking business away from an already established business. So again, the mill is basically another mill coming in and setting up in the same courtyard is basically stealing business from the existing mill owner.
That is not fair practice.
No, I don't think it's fair either. Now, they say in the courtyard. I guess it all depends on how big the courtyard is, doesn't it?
Okay. What do people think in the chat room? They're quiet tonight.
Don says, I agree, Rabbi.
It's not all, cut and dry.
Exactly. Now, if we were talking about a marketplace that was a fairly substantial marketplace, where if you had, you could actually have two mills in the area, and essentially you're still competing with each other to some extent, but not the same extent as if you put the two mills right next to each other.
Here's my question.
Okay.
Rabbi Aryel has a synagogue on the street. Rabbi Ancel comes along and opens up a synagogue next door. And he meets some of the members. He says, why don't you come to my synagogue? He says, you don't have to pay any annual fees. It's free. Is that fair practice?
No, it's not.
It's stealing.
Yeah, I mean it's
even though it's stealing with influence, but it's still stealing.
Yeah,
So
I mean there's just as a side, there is down in the Detroit area over by where my son lives. There's three synagogues on the same street, fairly close to each other.
Shouldn't be allowed. It's against Jewish law.
Well, there's one is Hasidic, one is Ashkenazic, and one is Sephardic.
Holy smoke! And there hasn't been a third world war there yet.
No, actually, there has not. The Sephardic synagogue is fairly small and modest, but they do all right. They've been there for a long time. It's just okay. So, in that case, okay. So let's take that case. In that case, is it wrong to open up a synagogue in the same general street when it's not an Ashkenazic, but it's a Sephardic?
Well, the question would be, are there any Sephardic Jews living on that street? There has to be a reason why somebody would open up a Sephardic synagogue.
Yeah.
Unless there was some Sephardic, because traditionally the traditions in a Sephardic, and even putting on the tefillin and the talis is different.
Mm-hmm.
You understand?
Yeah.
So,
well, yeah, I know well.
so if there was a lot of Sephardim on that street, I don't see any reason why you shouldn't be able to open up a synagogue. But if there were only Ashkenazim or only Sephardim and you open up two of the same synagogues, is it correct? Because eventually one of the synagogues or one of the rabbis or the mashgiach will try to influence some of the members to switch over for some reason, good or bad. And that is not fair practice.
So, in essence, it would be treated the same as the store.
Correct.
You can't move. You can't be on the same street. You have to be on a different street. There has to be some kind of line of demarcation.
That's exactly. And this is why I've seen a lot of times two synagogues, but they're 3 or 4 streets over from each other, which I don't see anything wrong. But I've seen them because one being Sephardic and one being Ashkenazi, and they did not interfere with each other. Even the Sephardic synagogue had a mikveh. The Ashkenazi wouldn't even get close to it. So, you look at different traditions. Boy, oh boy, it's not easy to be a Jew.
So, shall we go on?
Yes.
Okay. The principle manifests itself in the law governing where one may open a rival store. We mentioned before that one may open a competing store even adjacent to one that already exists. However, the Aryel, whose ruling is cited by the Ramon, and serves as the basis for many subsequent decision rules, that if a store is located inside a courtyard, another proprietor may not open a competing store near the entrance of the courtyard, since it will take away many potential customers, since they will necessarily pass by the second store before reaching the first store.
Thank you.
Since the first store cannot compete, we do not permit the second store to open up, and if it does, the Beit Din will force it to close.
Correct.
Note that we take into account the location of the first store and don't tell the proprietor that he can remain competitive by relocating. So in other words, they're talking about the first store. They're just saying, well, all you got to do is move your store up to the entrance, and you can compete with him there. So the principle also manifests itself in the law governing pricing. We mentioned that the Mishnah laws merchants who lower their prices. However, When the Rambam and the Rashba, in their commentaries to Bava Batra 22a, explain this statement of the Gemara, that they write that the reason is because the other store also can reduce their prices and remain competitive. Thus, the store is not allowed to reduce its price to a level that other stores cannot reasonably match. Again, that goes back to that whole issue about dumping.
Yep.
Okay. Similarly, the Aruch al-Shulchan writes that the praise that that's what it says, that the praise that the Mishnah heaped upon one who reduces prices is limited to those who sold grain that forced hoarders to sell their stock. That would be from Rashi's commentary from Bava Metzia, folio 60b, who explains the Mishnah in this manner. In the world at large, that does not follow Torah law. Rival stores routinely engage in this practice and ruin the livelihood of proprietors of existing stores. This would be something like actually, we're going to talk about it. Gigantic supermarkets that open up in the vicinity of smaller stores and reduce their prices to a level the smaller stores cannot meet, forcing the smaller store to close. Okay, that would be the case that a lot of people are bringing up about Walmart. Walmart comes into an area and drives out all the competition because they can't match the prices that Walmart gets with their buying power.
Small stores.
Pardon?
It eats up the small stores.
Yeah, exactly.
They can't survive.
Well, the grocery stores, the pharmacies, the hardware stores. I mean, yeah. I mean,
That's
drives
why
them.
when you go to Walmart, you find all those. You find grocery stores. You find whatever you want because.
Yeah, and they're so big they can get product at a much lower price than the smaller store can because the smaller store isn't buying in that kind of volume.
Okay, but here's my question. Is that wrong, what they're doing? Because they say business is business, but are they right what they're doing?
Is it right what they're doing? No. I don't think so. I don't think it's right for them because they know they have an unfair advantage. They know they're going to kill the competition. They're intentionally coming in there to kill the competition.
Is it wrong what they're doing? Yes. They're just a bunch of thieves because they don't think and they don't care about the smaller person. They don't care about if he's going to survive. They don't care if he's going to be able to pay for his family. They don't care if he's going to be able to pay for his children to go to school.
Right.
Is it fair? No, it is not. But they do it anyways.
Yeah. Now, going back to what we were talking about, the same shul on the same street. Yair has the question. He put it up in the chat room. What about an Orthodox, conservative, or Reform synagogue? Okay, on the same street.
Okay. Here's my thinking. Can somebody tell me what is the difference between a Reform Jew and a conservative Jew?
Oh, that's a loaded question.
It is. What is the difference between a conservative? I consider Jews as being Jews.
Yeah.
A Reformed Jew may be thinking a little bit differently, may have different traditions. Does it make them bad people?
Well, I look at it this way. At least they're going to shul.
Okay.
They could be secular and not go to shul at all.
But this is what I'm saying. Does it make them bad people? No.
No.
Does it make him different than conservative Jews? Yes, because they follow different traditions. Do
Right.
they believe in God? They're in shul. If they didn't believe in shul, they didn't believe in God, they wouldn't be in shul. Is a Hasidic synagogue differently? Oh boy, you better believe it is different. Does it because you're a Hasidic Jew, does it make you a better Jew than a Reformed Jew?
Yeah, that's a big question.
Yeah, just because you follow different traditions, you are more, let's say, more Torah observant. You send your children to Jewish school, but so do Reform Jews. It's a tough question to answer. For me, a Jew is a Jew. For me, what you do behind closed doors between you and God, you see, our smicha says, Yadin, Yore, Yadin, Yadin. Yadin is to judge, To judge, it comes to the point where there's a dispute between two people, there's a dispute between two businesses. There's a dispute between a man and a husband, between a man and a husband, between a man and a wife, and they want a divorce. That is your job as a judge. You do not judge anybody's character. You do not point a finger and say, "Oh, well, you're a Reformed Jew. You're no good." You're a conservative Jew, but you know.
Yeah.
You can say to a Reformed Jew, listen, you are a Jew, try not to eat treif and try not to eat pork. But you say it in a way that you don't judge him. You just try to explain to him. And this is my problem for me and for Aryel and for me, a lot of people that we call ourselves rabbis. We're not rabbis. It doesn't exist. I've preached this for thousands of years. Word rabbi doesn't exist. The word rabbi in Hebrew and in Aramaic is more. We are a teacher. We are supposed to teach our flock. Because if we don't teach our flock, how are they supposed to know? And I'll give you a prime example. And I was told in yeshiva that if you don't have anything good to say about the person, don't mention his name. And they're right. I was doing a funeral at Star of David in Florida. Maybe 50, 60 feet away from me, there was another rabbi. He was doing an unveiling. And I finished the funeral, and just to pay respect because he was older than me, and he had finished the unveiling for somebody, and I went over and I said, "Hello, Rabbi." And I said to him, because it was the days between holidays, and I said, "Rabbi, you've been a pulpit rabbi for 25 years. You have a beautiful synagogue, and you have many, many families. You know it's the days between Yom Tov. You're not supposed to say this prayer." And he looked me straight in the eyes and he says, "They don't know any better." And that was the last time I spoke to this person, to this rabbi.
Yeah, but you do.
What do you mean they don't know any better? Of course they don't know any better because he never told them.
Yeah.
They don't know. They didn't go to rabbinical school. Maybe they didn't go to Cheder. Maybe they didn't go to Hebrew school. How are they supposed to know? If I ask 9 out of 10 people, why do you put stones on a matzeva when you go to visit a cemetery? 9 out of 10 people wouldn't know why.
Yeah.
Because you don't tell them. So it's very frustrating for me, and I'm sure it's frustrating for you and the people in the chat room. There's a lot of things they don't know. But this is why I love doing the shows, because we talk about these things and they learn. So when they go home, maybe, and I hope and I pray to Hashem, maybe they can teach their own children or tell their children, you know what, I learned something different tonight that I didn't know.
Yeah.
And this
Or
child,
just discuss it. It's like, did you know
and
you can't do
explain
this?
and explain why.
Yeah.
And that's what makes Judaism something nice. And like I said, in Judaism, the laws, because they're just people discussing things, their opinions. They come up to a conclusion. I would say many times they're very wrong, like this evening. But still, it's something that you can discuss. He says, did you know that basically you shouldn't open two synagogues on the same street because you're interfering with the other synagogue, or somebody may try to steal some of the members, which is not nice. But if you didn't know, you don't know. And this is why it bothers me about a lot of rabbis. Rabbinical, in a lot of ways, in North America has become a business. It's gone away from what a more, a teacher, is supposed to tell the flock. And every Shabbos, a rabbi should be talking about this. I understand about talking about Shoah and Auschwitz and all this, but I believe it's something that everybody should know, but it's something that you shouldn't harp on it because it just brings back bad memories. Those people are gone to God, and something like that, I pray to God, I pray to Hashem that will never happen, and I don't believe Hashem would ever allow this to happen. But life goes on.
That's right. Yeah, because even, I mean, we learn this from the from death. We're not allowed. We're not supposed to grieve extensively. I guess.
A funeral is not for the dead. A funeral is for the living.
Yeah.
Most people don't know. At a Jewish funeral, you shouldn't be wearing black. You're supposed to celebrate life. You could wear white. I'm not saying that you should wear, pink and yellow and green flowers, but you can wear white. You can wear a beige. You can wear any. Black is not Jewish. Black is maybe Hasidic that Chabad decided to wear black. Okay, wear black, but you're not supposed to wear black at a wedding.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to wear black at a wedding. Wedding is something happy. It's not a. I was going to say it's not a funeral because you're not supposed. but there's so many things that you're supposed to know. Simple. Why are there 3 meals? Why are you supposed to have 3 meals to eat on Shabbos? Most people wouldn't know the answers. Why? It's because we don't tell the people. And it's something very nice. Why do we make Havdalah? If I was to ask a lot of people, do Jews pray to because Havdalah is done with the moon. Do Jews pray to the moon? I've had 8 out of 10 people. Of course we pray to the moon. No, we don't pray to the moon. We bless the moon.
Right.
Jews don't pray. Jews pray to Hashem, to God. We bless the moon, but we don't pray to the moon. And these are the small things that makes it worthwhile when I call myself a rabbi. Wrong word, but I will accept it. You understand?
Yep.
And that makes me feel good that I can say and I can tell people and I can teach the people something new and something different. But more importantly, is that they can tell their children because they are our future. If we don't tell them, Judaism is going to be lost, and it's going to be lost forever.
Right.
And that would be very sad.
Well, now, going back to what we were talking about in the din here, that Marshall brings up a interesting question. And I think I want to table the rest of this discussion until next week because I think what he's bringing up here is actually, well, let me read the question. Would that make capitalism unfair? Now, this was back when we were talking about Walmart driving out businesses and stuff like that. And like I said, I think I want to table the rest of this discussion. I never thought we were going to go 3 sessions on this.
Okay.
But I want to go into this next week and leave off where we are now and come back to this next week to address specifically what Marshall is asking in here because I think it's a fascinating question. And let's do that.
Let me add to this to Marshall. Studying Torah is never ending because there are so many things to learn that even me still has to learn. It's an unending learning process until we go to God because there's so much to know. I mean, if we were to go through the 613 mitzvot, let me put it this way. To do the laws of Shabbos, I was laughing at my teacher, or my professor. He gave me the book, and it was 700 pages. I said, "Holy smoke!" I said to him, "You're telling me that the first 50 pages," or he said 49. I said, "The first 50 pages is what I'm allowed to do. The rest of it is what I'm not allowed to do on Shabbos." So I said to him, "I might as well not get out of bed." He says, "Well, that's the first problem." So
yeah,
there are so many things to learn. Yes, some of the things that we as rabbis learn that is not necessary for the people, to know because most of the time you will not use it. But the basic laws, and more importantly, traditions at home, family, the beautiful traditions at a wedding, the 7 blessings. Why does the bride walk around the groom 7 times? The Sheva Berachot. Why does the groom wear a tallis? Because a lot of people say, men say, "I don't want to wear a tallis, I'm not religious." And I said, tallis has nothing to do with religion. You wear a tallis, you show your wife you're married. Simple. But these are the things.
Well, and that way the women up in the mechitza can determine who they should point out to their daughters.
I used to tell the young ladies coming into shul, I said, if you see a man dressed in a suit with no tallis, grab him. He's single. If he's wearing a tallis, stay away. But these are some of the small things and some of the traditions that we should install into our people, and our people should install this into their children. How many people on Friday night bless the wife and the children?
Yeah.
Very few. And those are the beautiful traditions. How many women light Shabbos candles?
Right.
Because that's one of the biggest things. Women are not supposed to pray, but to light Shabbos candles is something very important. So maybe some of these things we should discuss because it can be handed down to their children and to their children's children And this is how Judaism, I pray to Hashem, will survive. And with that, I will say good night.
Okay, well, we are at our end. Hang on, I'm going to turn you down, and then we're going to sign out here, and then I will get back to you.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, I want to thank everybody for being here this evening. I hope you're enjoying this discussion. Like I said, I never expected that. When we went into this, I thought we would get through it in one setting, but it looks like we're going to go into 3. So that's the really nice thing about this, not having a set format that we're following, is it allows us to say, there's something interesting here. Let's delve into it a little deeper. Okay, so don't forget, tomorrow night at 8 p.m. is the Torah Study in Depth with yours truly, Rabbi. And then Friday night is Kabbalah, the Ma'ariv Shabbat service at 8 p.m. Eastern. And then Shachrit and Musaf on Shabbat morning at 10 a.m. So I want to thank you. And don't forget, right back here on Monday, I promise Zeta will not make you cry this coming week. That was a pretty sad story. Wonderful story, beautiful story. If you didn't get the chance to see it, I encourage you, go back and watch Zeta's Story Corner from last night. Naphtali, the storyteller, and his horse Sus. It was beautiful, beautiful story. Will make you cry, guaranteed. It will make you cry. So Zeta promises that he won't read anything that's going to make you cry next week on Monday at 8 p.m. for Zeta's Story Corner. Until then, we will just simply say, Laila Tov.